I would say it's always four things, right? It's either you change the culture, you change the process, you change the customer experience or product or service. So with AI, like if it's culture, how do you empower your employees, right? For the culture that you like. If it's malasakit, how do you use AI to get malasakit? Is it about creating an AI bot that would ask them about, etc., about their things? Or like if it's process, through AI, how do you become more productive in the sense that, okay, if you're computing this manually, can you use AI so that it reduces the time so that I could have more time with my family? I don't know. Or more time to really analyze data. I mean, in our company, that's what we do. We use AI so that we can analyze and fact check more, but we don't, we leave it to AI to gather and combine the resources.
Welcome and good day. It is season six. I'm sorry, episode six of season 18. And today, I believe this is the second time our guest will be speaking with us, and he'll be talking about something very, very important. Okay, has to do with AI, which I'm sure we're all interested in, and we'll be talking about empowering AI technology for local use.
Mm.
And today we have Dae Lee. He's currently with Fourth Wall, which is, and I'm very interested even with this, with the social, cultural, architectural. That's something maybe I need to wrap my head around. Okay, but we can talk about that later.
Gotcha.
Plus, he's also currently a faculty at the University of Asian Pacific and a consultant in the Brick, is that? Where
Brick
they do
management consulting, yeah.
Brick Management Consulting. As always, we allow our guests to introduce themselves. So over to you, Dave.
Well, yeah, that's pretty much what I do, as well as I think in Fourth Wall, what we're representing, since you've mentioned, we're actually a research firm, research and analysis firm, and we've purely focused on the Filipino behavior, usually workplace behavior. Because we saw that there was a lack of, I would say, Filipino frameworks, Filipino research that would make people understand and hopefully change behavior in the Philippines for the better, right? So, I mean, really in a nutshell, that's basically it. We really do research and analysis through the Filipino lens, as you can see in my background.
Okay.
That's that. And I do have a PhD in organization development planning that explains why I'm very close to the HR workplace organization development side. And I do a lot of behavioral sciences things. So I really try to make information simple and actionable for people. And that's really the core of everything that we do at all the companies and even myself. Yeah, that's it.
Fascinating, fascinating. Maybe my first question has to do with
Mm.
the Filipino culture, because I'm sure you can hear by the way I speak. While I am Filipino, that I probably grew up somewhere else, and I did.
Mm.
Uh, and I also see Filipino culture, all its good things and bad things, if you want to say. But let's start with maybe what in your research is showing us standing out as something that the Filipinos have maybe an edge when it comes compared to other cultures.
I think there's a lot of things, right? And I would say even the good things and bad things, we can't really say something's good and something's bad because all of this combined leads to an outcome, right? So I would always say that these are neutral things that maybe the extreme of certain things are bad, right? One thing that I've seen is I think a lot because this is a mix, adaptability is one of the things that Filipinos have very well, right? That's one thing that I would say. But the strength really comes from understanding the data with through the lens of the Philippine culture. Like you said, you are Filipino, but you grew up somewhere else. I myself, I'm not Filipino. I'm actually Korean, but I do speak the language. I studied it a lot. I studied the culture a lot. So I know a lot of nuances. And what I realized was that the strength really comes from understanding the data or information that are within the Philippines rather than looking outside. That's why I always say that foreign data actually discourages because you tend to compare it and say that why aren't we like that? But when you look at local data, it actually empowers, right? Because we've seen things like a very good example would be something about like women empowerment, right? When you see data outside, people say that, oh, maybe 32%, I'm not really sure of the exact numbers, but 30 something percent of small, medium enterprises are owned by women outside all over globally. And we look at that and say that, oh no, we need to push women empowerment more in the Philippines. But when you actually look at data in the Philippines, it's the numbers are actually 72% of SMEs are owned by women in the Philippines. And that just shows that, we, in the sense that Filipinos, I'll just put myself in there also, should be empowered by that and say that, hey, we're actually in the forefront of empowering women to own businesses. And people would be like, no, but that's small and medium enterprises. But then again, if you see the data within, it's like 90 something percent of businesses in the Philippines are actually small, medium enterprises. So the
Right.
more you get to understand data in the Philippine context and in the Philippines, the more empowered that you can become and not really compared with others. And you would see that you would actually have a massive head start versus the other people. So that's what I want to show. It's not the different, I would say, characteristics, but understanding yourself is already enough, I would say. Yeah.
Well, actually, you make a very good point, and this is still a little off topic
Yeah,
on
sure, sure.
the AI and
Yeah,
technology.
no problem.
And this actually heard from Mr. Meloto, who's the founder of Human Nature.
Yeah. Human
Uh,
apprehensive.
I, I how do you
Oh,
call?
is
I
it
can't
Gawad
remember, but
Kalina?
yes, yes. And he said something very smart, and pretty much it's what you're saying also, but it's reversed. He said because the problem here is the male, not the female.
Mm,
So you have to learn how to empower the male.
mm.
Empower the female, he knows that. You give the woman the money, she takes care of it. The guy, what does he do? He goes off and gets drunk and gambles it.
I mean,
No,
generalization, right? But that's
no, it's a broad generalization,
yeah,
but it made absolute sense to me when that happened. I
yeah,
said, so the issue is the male, and I'll agree with it. I
yeah.
mean, I'm a male. I grew up with five women. I have four daughters, so I said, what the hell? But the interesting about that data and the data point you make is I think it was first looked at, and I'm sure you know the Dunning-Kruger effect, but
Mm,
the airplane that came back from battle and it was riddled with holes.
mm,
Okay, but it survived, and they said, okay, we have to reinforce that area where all the holes are. When the one smart engineer said, no, this one came back, so where the holes are fine.
mm.
The problem is where the holes aren't, because
Aren't
that's what
yeah,
caused the others to crash.
yeah.
Okay, so I said, so if you apply that thinking to what you're saying, plus what Mr. Meloto said, the real issue here is the male. It's not necessarily the female.
Mm.
And I've watched, I've lived in the culture too long to understand that. I never looked at it that way until Mr. Meloto opened my eyes and said, wow, that makes sense. And you're just confirming it.
No, no, no.
Well,
It goes back to history. To be honest, like it goes back to the Babai lands. It goes back to Christianity. Devotion to Mother Mary, etc. Like it really goes back to that whole thing, right? But again, we digress from the topic. So sorry
maybe
about
we can
that.
have another conversation about them. That's all right. That's all right. But let's get into AI.
Yeah, 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 sure,
And
sure.
let's you give me first a little background about how you see the AI, how do you say, landscape here,
Mm,
and especially here locally.
mm.
How do you see it happening? How do you see it rolling out?
I think AI is there. I mean, it's been there ever since, even before the whole ChatGPT thing and the all these things came out. AI has been there with algorithms, like the moment that we use Facebook way back, Instagram, and all the different applications. We'll say AI has been there, right? It's just I would say that it's how you use it is what's I think missing right now because a lot of people say that we should use AI, but some people just try to force it in to their system and say that let's use AI, and then sometimes they just use it as branding, but there's not no such thing as AI behind it. At the same time, the landscape is a lot of people are, I would say it's divided. A lot of people want to use it but don't know how to apply it. A lot of people are just looking at what's in the news and are scared of what it can do. I would maybe it's not a pretty good analogy, but it's the same thing that I see that was happening when the internet was growing. People were saying that, oh, there's this thing called internet and search and Google and Yahoo at that time, right? And even like way back, even before Google and Yahoo, there was, AOL and all these things. And they were like, oh, everything is searchable now. People don't need to go to school anymore, and that's scary. But you realize that, that didn't happen, right? So I think it's the same thing. It's AI is a tool that you can use, right? And it depends on the person using the tool. That I think that's what I'm seeing right now. People are doing very well with AI. Actually, it doesn't even mention AI. They just use it properly. It's the same thing as when we're presenting. We don't say that, oh, we're using PowerPoint. It doesn't matter if you use PowerPoint, Keynote, or Canva, or whatever is out there, as long as your intention and your outcome is to present and relay information, if that's your objective. If you're doing well with that, whatever tool that you use would be perfect for that, right? So as long as you know how to use it. So I think AI is the same. Right now, I think there's a mix of fear, excitement, and all these things. But at the end of the day, it's how do you use it? That's why I'm all for putting it in the context and localizing it so that it's useful. Because if a tool, no matter how good it is, if people don't use it, then it doesn't have any effect, right? But if the tool, even if the technology is really bad, let's say it's really low tech in that sense, but people use it, then that's a good tool, right? So that's where I'm coming from. Mhm.
I understand completely. In fact, that makes absolute sense. So when it comes to localizing it,
Mhm.
I could see that the need to make it local.
Mhm.
But given again our culture and ourselves,
Mhm.
what are some maybe how would you say hurdles that we might face when it
Uh-huh.
comes to localization? And I'll just point one out.
Yeah, sure,
Okay,
sure, sure.
Filipinos are known to have crab mentality.
Mm, okay.
Now, if I'm sitting here working, even though I might have the best intent and not knowing unconscious bias that we're working with crab mentality, how could that, I'm seeing that as working using AI the wrong way.
Mm,
Okay. I'd be more focused on trying to tear you down rather than, trying to, hey, let's share our ideas. Okay. And that can happen. All right. So, given that scenario, how do you think we should address that?
I think that when that happens, I feel like there is somewhat a lack of objective for the person or direction the person is given. Usually for things like that, I mean, it even happens without AI, right? People tear people down.
Yeah.
And I would say it's putting in those, I guess, standards within, or even giving direction, clear directions, and saying, hey, this is the objective. And I think it's regardless of AI or the tool, I think it's more of either training, educating them about how to just be a, right, good person. That's it, right? And that's where it starts. I mean, to be honest, like, you learn about GMRC, I think that's what you call it in the Philippines, good manners and right conduct, right? And
Correct.
and, and that's it. And again, if people want to do damage, people will do damage. And I think it also starts from the corporations or companies or organizations to really set that and say that we're here to do good, to push things forward. And when you look at it, I'm from the military. Most of the time, when there is a lack of direction or what we call the commander's intent, and when we don't have that, people start going astray and their morals, if their morals aren't intact, then they, suddenly become mercenaries. They become what you call ronins or whatever, and then go astray. But if the leaders up there are able to really instill the values, right, and bring that out from the people, I think that's where things become better. Yeah, I think that's I don't know if I answered your question, but that's my thoughts on that.
That's maybe a little bit.
Yeah.
And this is something that my dad told me way back when I was a kid, not living here. Okay. And I only realized when I started working in the country that my
Mm,
dad was absolutely right. And he said, son, if you put three Filipino males in a room, you
mhm,
will walk out with five associations.
mm,
And you can see this happening in most organizations. They'll start an organization, look good, then there'll be a splinter group that starts something else, and then a splinter group, and when they could have just stayed as one.
yeah.
Okay.
I,
And
I
I don't know
actually
if
have
that's
a
good or
very good
bad. Go ahead.
explanation. Sorry,
Yeah.
go ahead.
No, go ahead. You have a
Yeah.
good explanation.
No, explanation on that. I don't think it's just Filipinos. I mean, I'm coming from a foreign lens, right? Because I'm Korean and I do study different cultures. And that usually happens regardless of I would say let's say, regardless of Filipinos, so I'm just looking at the other side of it, is that when there is no real, I would say, strong leader that would push forward, and because I feel like Filipinos are very, uh, one, intuitive and very crafty in the sense resourceful, and their survival is something that they do very well, right? So in order to survive, their ideas come out. And because the leader, let's say, isn't as strong enough to rally these people and say that, okay, this is a good direction to go to, then the leader in them comes out and suddenly starts splitting to each other. And I mean, again, going back to my military background, that's what we're always told. These subordinates, or let's say the troops that we have, may be better shooters than us, better tacticians than us, better, in everything than us. But what we have to be really good in is to be able to rally them together towards one vision and one goal. And that's what a leader should do. And if we don't do that, they're going to go on their own ways because they have their specializations. So I think that's the same. I mean, I see it that way. Just to, understand human behavior. I may be wrong, to be honest, but yeah, I see that. I see that in the Philippines, but I also see that there are ways to remedy that, right? So very interesting in that sense.
I, what I started working here. I came back in 1981.
Oh,
I grew up in Italy, of all funny countries, so I speak fluent Italian, but
nice.
I was educated in an American international school. That's why I sound like this. Okay. So in short, I've been here since 1981. I started working in 85. And between 85 and today,
Mm-hmm.
I've seen that our culture is not helping us at all.
Mm,
It's not helping us move forward as a country. You are absolutely right that in order to, move in one direction, you need strong leadership. And usually that's just enough, providing enough clarity and all of that. Unfortunately, in our case, it's the strong leadership went the wrong way.
mm,
Okay.
okay.
And, just to give you an idea, I was chatting with a friend of mine and he said, we were fooled by
Mm,
the previous president.
mm,
Okay. And then I wrote back to him, look, I've been watching the election since 1986. And how do they say it? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.
mm,
Us, we always being fooled. So the
mm,
conclusion I'm making is either we like being fooled or we don't care.
mm,
We only care about ourselves.
mm.
And that's been since 1986. Okay. Now I'm not a sociologist. I'm just watching what's going on.
Yeah.
And even today, I mean, you just look at our situation. We don't care enough to complain.
Mhm.
Okay, which in adaptability in that sense for me is a weakness because we just keep on changing well without drawing a line somewhere and say, okay, this is it. Beyond this line, I'm gonna complain or I'm gonna revolt or whatever it is. And we just keep on adapting and adapting. Yes, it's good, but at the same time, there has to be somewhere. Uh, and let's tie this to the whole thing with AI.
Yeah,
Let's
sure.
bring it back to AI. Uh,
I think I do have something there that I can tie it
sure.
back if you
Okay.
want to
Uh,
start.
I'll throw in what I have about AI first
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
see
sure.
what you think. Okay, I was of the era when I did a research paper, I needed a library card.
Yeah.
Okay. And I can assure you, despite all those hours in the library, so forth and so on, my output was probably not great. It was probably trash.
Okay.
But the lesson learned there was me going out to the library and actually doing the research.
Mm, agree, agree.
Now, as a student, I can produce high quality output using AI, but not doing the actual research.
Mm-hmm,
That's where the strength is. It's not in the output, it's in the process of doing the research.
mm-hmm,
Now, our brains are naturally lazy. So every time we find an easier way to do something, we'll probably do it.
mm,
But at the same time, our brains also strengthen by doing simple repeated actions, like going to the library and doing some research. And that gets lost with AI.
mm,
Okay, that gets lost moving forward. And oh, yes, we can produce great quality stuff. But at the end of the day, are we actually comprehending the lesson? Or are we just learning how to answer very well?
mm,
Okay, those are my challenges with AI. Whatever, maybe you have something you said you were thinking of an answer. Okay, you're all set to go. But if we combine those two scenarios, AI is great. It
mm-hmm,
is. And unfortunately, we can't you can't put it back in the bottle or
Mhm.
back in the lamp, if you want to say. It's really going to go out there.
Mhm.
And I'm more of the person who's concerned about what it can do. Maybe not afraid, but concerned.
No.
Simply because even the creators of AI themselves will tell you that they don't know what it can do.
Yeah.
They know how it works, but they don't know what it can do.
Mhm.
All right, so that already was just what? Okay. So, given all of that, and yes, we have to put in AI, plus the challenges of our own culture, if you want to say.
Mhm.
Uh, how do you see it working out?
I see it this way because I experienced the going to the library, right?
Mhm.
And doing the library card and doing the whole thing. But I also experienced doing the internet kind of thing,
Yep.
wherein you download PDFs and go to journals and all that. And also experienced because I'm in a research firm. And when I was taking my PhD, I think the AI did not, ChatGPT didn't exist yet, right?
No, did it.
There were AI tools that would help me do weather statistics and et cetera, right?
Mhm.
The point here is I think the objective of doing research is for you to think critically and to see what's right or wrong, right? The skill that's needed when we had libraries, there isn't much. I would say there were false publications that may not be true, but it was easy to distinguish as long as you had four or five sources to reference, and then you interview people, etc., and then look in the library, and that's pretty much it. So all you needed to worry about are the thousands or the hundreds of books that are there. And then within that hundreds of books, there's like maybe four or five or 10 that you reference for your research, right? And that was the biggest problem. And that's where the time went. But today, I think the newer skills are required to understand or comprehend or critically evaluate all the information because one search in Google, we're not even in AI, one search in Google gives you millions or billions of answers and sources that you don't even know if it's right or wrong. So
Mhm.
now the skill is not about, trying to go through that and, creating a good proper output, right? It's more about how do you think critically. And I think that's what research is all about and really understand. So the output of it being nice is the same thing as before you would write reports in, I remember grade school, I would write reports in like manually, and then we had to write it in cursive, and it has to be, and penmanship was graded, like it was part of the report, right?
You're telling me how old you are. Be quiet. No, just
Oh
kidding.
yeah, no. No, it's okay because you told me how old you are. So the difference. But the point is there. I think technology just makes the output look nicer, right? Formatting wise, how it's said, but does not necessarily show you the substance it has, right? And that's what we have to keep pushing out there as human beings to make sure that because all the hard work, which was writing, and if you make a mistake, you have to, scrap it. These days, you can just press backspace or let AI write it, right? But making sure that the substance is as good as the visual output or the formatting or the form. So the content and form has to be balanced. So I think that's what's so now your technology is actually giving us more leeway to be able to give more substantial content than focusing on the form. Because before we had to do both. Now we don't need to worry too much about the form, but we have to
Correct.
worry about content and how substantial that is. So yeah, I think that's something that I think, in my opinion, that what it's doing right now. Mhm.
The biggest challenge for that is, you know, in my days, if I wanted to censor something,
Yeah.
I would go either take over the newspaper, shut down the radio station, shut down the TV station. That's what we used to do.
Mm.
When the internet came out, the ones who want to take advantage of it realized that if I flooded with information,
Yeah.
I'm also censoring because now the truth, well, what happens to the truth in this more and more information? It just sinks to the bottom.
Mm,
Okay. And unfortunately, we're lazy. Our brains are just lazy.
mm,
Some of us don't have that fortitude to, okay, let's go do some research and really dig as far as we can to figure out whether it's true or not. We'll
mm,
just take it for what it is.
mm,
Okay. And to make matters worse, if you look at a corporation, which I'm sure with the advent of AI and everything,
mm,
managers is going to get more accountabilities because, hey, AI now can do so much more. So now you're now responsible for so much more.
mm,
And that really doesn't help. Okay.
mm,
Uh, for me, the way you phrase it is exactly what the challenge is.
mm,
Yeah, how can we keep our ethics and all of that? Long ago, before any of the technology was around, even when the West started pushing the notion of individualism,
mhm,
okay, which I think happened in the 50s when they created their nuclear family. I mean, you'd go home to a house with so many relatives.
mm,
Grandfather was there, the uncle was there, and most likely in that group there was even a crazy uncle, a drunk uncle,
mm,
the aunt who fooled around with all the men, or whatever it is. All characters were there, and you might even have the guy who was technically how do you call crazy, medically crazy, part of the group, and you go home to that household,
yeah.
and that household was the one guiding you with your ethics.
Mm,
Eventually, I mean, because you went home there, they told you what is right or wrong. But then when you took that out, and then along comes social media,
mhm,
which now, and you know how social media algorithms work. They're not really based on ethics. Well, the ethics is let's make more money. The whole concept of ethics becomes even a challenge in itself.
mm, sure.
Uh, it's scary how many people cannot distinguish between their rights and the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's really an ethical issue. Uh, they just keep saying, "My right, it's my right, it's my right." They said, "Hey, but there's also the right thing to do." If they can't make that distinction, and with as it is with social media, it's pretty bad. Okay. Along will come AI and make things just flooded with more information and make things even more confusing, or
Mm,
if you have the bad intent, easier to manipulate.
mm,
Okay, and for me, those are the things that I'm fearful about. But at the same time, I also know that we have to move forward.
yeah.
And localizing, I think, has to be done for all countries and all cultures because each one will treat it
Yeah.
differently. But at the same time, that distinction between uh, knowing when you should let AI decide rather than you
Mm,
decide is a very important thing that has to be discussed, which I don't see people discussing
yeah.
about. Okay. All right.
I think with your last point, I don't believe in leaving AI to decide, right? At the end of the day, humans are the ones that have the free will to decide. At the same time, humans are the ones that made this in the first place, right? To your answer of all this misinformation and stuff, and that's the reason why Fourth Wall also exists is because we have all the technology and tools right now to do our own studies and research. Meaning, before it was so hard to do a mass study to understand human behavior. So, what we do is usually get information or frameworks that are Western because they're the ones who did the research already.
Mhm.
When we say contextualizing, or this is going now into why I'm all for localization, is that we now all have all the tools to be able to understand human beings without referencing other countries anymore or other countries with a lot of research. Because again, our culture is very different from theirs, right? Pakikisama, hiya, whether it's good or bad, these are very distinct to Filipinos, right? So what does this mean? There's this quote that I like that says that when a plant does not grow, you fix the environment in which it grows and not the plant. So it's like you can't mad at the cactus and say, "Oh, all the plants grow when I water them every day," and then you start watering it, right? Then of course the cactus is going to die. So it's about understanding that it is a cactus and saying, "Okay, what are the nutrients or things that the cactus needs that to be able to grow?" Then do it there, and then how do you get to know that? Do your the research in what is a cactus, what is the environment it's growing, etc. And I think most of the problems that we see, or the clients that I see with the problems are because we try to fit in foreign frameworks or foreign ways of working, that is why I think there are a lot of problems arising, like crab mentality, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right? So what localization means is that how do you change the environment so that these tools can be used to gather good information? Well, for our company, that's what we do and help other companies. Because, for example, AI, you want to gather information with AI, but most of the people in the workforce, let's say, are more comfortable speaking in Taglish, right? Then you have to make AI actually speak Taglish and not the robotic Taglish, but actual how we speak, right? In a normal setting where we're comfortable. Then we can get insights better. And that's what I mean. And if we get the insights better, you would see that Filipinos actually go back to the values naman eh. Like values of pakikisama, 'di ba, bayanihan, and all these things suddenly come out that it just got masked because when we ask them about these things in English, they actually don't say those things. And even go to like Cebu, we have like what 200 plus languages, right? It's very different. The same survey, same question through AI, because we built a AI survey. I was more of an interviewer, to be honest. The same question we ask in English and Bisaya, right? It very different answers altogether. Right? Because I think maybe we're trained that English is a medium of communication when it comes to professionalism. Maybe that's why. I mean, it's different for you and I because English for us, maybe you studied somewhere else. I studied it because I needed to communicate internationally. But like to be honest, in Korea, we don't really speak English that well, right? And that's why my accent is also very mixed because I do live in Singapore, but I studied in Manila and then I studied, in a lot of places. So like it's hodgepodge right now. But the point here is I think localization plays now a very good thing in trying to understand so that people don't need to go anymore to these TikTok or whatever you're mentioning, Instagram, all the social media to get their information. So that's what I'm trying to get at here, that AI can actually help us find our identity again and not really find our identity again, but make it I would say more distinct in that sense.
You know, that's actually makes a whole lot of sense. Okay, and it's actually the first time I'm hearing it, so
Yeah.
uh, I'm enthused by that because it gives me some sense of maybe let's say better hope when it comes to
Mhm.
AI.
No,
Okay,
no, no, it is. Yeah.
yeah, a typical word that I like to use is if you look at the word assertiveness in English,
Yeah.
there's no direct translation in Filipino, none. No
Mm.
matter how hard you look, no matter which dialect you look,
Mm.
assertive doesn't exist. And if you notice, as a culture, we're not very assertive in the first place.
Mm.
Okay, so it doesn't.
Yeah,
It's
the
a little
bottom line,
tricky.
yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay, but if you that model there, if you did that all over the world for every country, that would be awesome. But the one thing that still ties it all together is our sense of humanity, and that for me is cultureless. Why do I say
Mm.
cultureless? I don't want to sound religious or anything here, but all religions, most of them, at least the ones I know, they have a set of rules that you're
Mm.
supposed to follow.
Mm.
Taking Christianity, for example, you read Ten Commandments, and if you look at the rules, they just tell you, hey, be nice to the other person. That's all it's saying.
Mhm.
Okay, and even that sense of being nice to the other person, uh, that's just one thing that AI always has to, how do you say, push out, regardless. And that's not a cultural thing; that's a humanity thing.
Mhm.
Okay, because it's sometimes it's just not there.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, social media isn't about being nice to each other.
Mm.
Okay, at least I don't think it is. Okay, as Archie and Long pointed out, another very, very respected uh, speaker and trainer about communication, he goes, social media is a platform for expression.
Mhm.
It's a platform where you get attention. But the last thing you do is it's a platform for communication. You can't have a conversation, a decent conversation
No.
on most platforms. You can't.
Mhm.
Unless it's just you and I, we can do a good chat. That's fine. But if you look at the general conversations going on, they're not communicating, they're just screaming at each other.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And for me, that's a lack of sense of humanity. That's nothing to do with your culture.
No, yeah.
Okay, and that's one thing that AI. I wish AI doesn't make that disappear or make it just hidden under all the data somewhere there. Okay, it's even more difficult to find because unfortunately, and you see this around the world. The general the how would you say the hatred has just gone up.
Mhm.
Okay, divisiveness will always be there. You and I will always be different. But for
Mhm.
some reason, it's the hatred between, maybe divisions, if you want to say, has
Mhm.
increased, has amplified.
Mhm.
Okay, so those are things that I wish AI doesn't amplify. Okay,
No,
or make it less difficult to achieve some kind of harmony.
I think what AI can do is actually level the playing field when it comes to that. And again, this is my opinion on it, and we've tested this out very well in our LinkedIn page, just to give you an idea. Because I think algorithms right now really refer to what you want to see, right? And the more you see like negativity, the more negative things are going to be. The more one-sided you are, the more one-sided it's going to be. And most of the time, these are, I would say, maybe funded or maybe, people with resources would have the power to push this out and create content, right? But AI, because now it pretty much democratizes the content creation or the information creation. If, for example, like us, a research company that's really trying our best to do good and push, like you said, humanity, and I believe that humanity is everywhere, it's universal, right? And culture is just an interpretation of that humanity, I would say, right? That's why you have to put it in the context of the culture to let them understand the humanity. I think it's our role now, people who want to push this and go against the bad side of AI, is to be proactive in creating this sort of environments, like I said, environments so that people can grow, right? Or the plants can grow. So we tested it out in the sense that what if on LinkedIn, what if we start talking about things are very Filipino, but still talk about the values that Filipinos have? And if you go to our LinkedIn, there is, I would say, discourse. I would say there is debates, but they're not attacking each other. They're really telling each other their experiences. You won't see people just saying that you're wrong, you're right. It's very interesting. So I believe that if AI can destroy, there's also the opposite side wherein there are human beings or us or even organizations that can push forward the good side of it, that can mask the bad. Because right now we don't need, like for example, our company, our organization right now, we're really small, to be honest. We can't go against all these big corporations with millions and billions of dollars. But funnily, we still have a voice somewhere there, and we get quoted, we get people ask us, we go on interviews and all these things. That already proves that, hey, resources don't really matter anymore because now AI made us have a level playing field. So I guess that's where, I mean, hope can come in, right? I would say.
Well, ultimately, I think that the sun will rise in the horizon. Ultimately,
Yeah.
uh, so I'm still, how would you say, positive about that.
Mhm.
But I think we'll have to go through a period of, let's say, dark ages, okay, where we might get lost bumping around trying to figure out what to do with this before the sun actually rises, if you want to say, because everything AI was supposed to be an open source in the beginning,
Mhm. Mhm.
if I'm not mistaken. But when money started flying around, now started becoming an issue of dominance. Which one will be the one to rule? And once that factor starts sneaking itself into the whole debate, okay, then it starts getting off already. Because the idea for AI at that point is I want to be the dominant platform.
Mhm.
And just to get there, well, yeah, it requires a lot of things that maybe might not be so ethical. Okay.
Mhm.
And then in that sense, it's tricky.
Mhm.
But all in all, I'm still very positive that the sun will rise sometime. Okay, we have to
Yeah.
go through a period of dark ages. In fact, that there was one group I was chatting with, and did you watch Wall-E, the animated
Yeah.
movie?
Mhm.
And I said in that movie, surprisingly, the machines had more humanity than the people floating up in the sky.
Mhm.
Okay, Wally, you can see the expressions. Eve, you can see her expressions. But when you go up into the sky, you just see all these guys floating around doing nothing. I mean, and then they come down and actually believe that pizza can grow on trees, which tells me that, hey, where'd you get your data from? How'd you come to that conclusion? You know what I mean? So uh, that's something that's definitely maybe for another day conversation because those
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
conversations can go on forever.
Mhm.
But in the meantime, you mentioned some of your resources in LinkedIn, was it? Maybe
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
can share with our audience the sources that you'd like to share with us. Okay,
Yeah. Sure.
or maybe you have an event coming up that you'd like to talk about. Can you go ahead? Can you
Um,
speak more on that?
But to be honest, we're really trying to get information out there, meaning Filipino information out there so that people can understand. And I also believe that AI, when localized, it's a process of understanding data, right? The fear that you have of, or if people start understanding that pizza grows on trees, in order
Right.
not to be able to do that, we encourage people to do real research and understanding analysis and all that through us with us to help you and your organization really understand all these things. And that's the reason why we're here. That we also believe that AI localized can be used for really good change. So on LinkedIn, you can actually follow us on the fourth wall. So that's
No,
the fourth wall. And we put out information, research every week that is bite size, that is easy to understand. And again, if we didn't have AI, we wouldn't be able to release research every week, right?
of course.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so that's what we're saying. And in the context of the Philippines, to understand workplace behavior. Other things, I think I usually post on my Instagram. That's at Dae Lee, my full name, just basically Dae Lee. And I do have talks, I think, every other week, whether it's private or public. So I usually tell people where it is in that platform. So yeah, that's pretty much on our end. Yeah. Anything else that you'd like
I'm
to?
very excited to look at some of the resources and maybe tools that you have about, especially the ethics issue.
Hmm.
Uh, I mean, because for me, that's something that's really getting lost today.
Hmm.
Okay, the sense of ethics and what AI, how we can maybe guide AI to make sure it's not going to kill us. Okay, if you want to say,
To be honest, I think that's the job also of the creators of AI. But for
right?
people like us who use the AI, even before ethics and all these things, I think it's really understanding what's the objective that you want to achieve with AI first. Because if you talk about ethics and all that, I don't think it's very close to the normal individual person these days, right? So I think it's more of objectives. What are your objectives? And really understanding, I may say that it's not about forcing yourself to use AI, but how can AI really help you? So I would say it's always four things, right? It's either you change the culture, you change the process, you change the customer experience or product or service. So with AI, like if it's culture, how do you empower your employees? Right? For the culture that you like. If it's malasakit, how do you use AI to get malasakit? Is it about creating an AI bot that would ask them about, etc., about their things? Or like if it's process, through AI, how do you become more productive in the sense that, okay, if you're computing this manually, can you use AI so that it reduces the time so that I could have more time with my family? I don't know. Or more time to really analyze data. I mean, in our company, that's what we do. We use AI so that we can analyze and fact check more, but we don't we leave it to AI to gather and combine the resources, right? And then we have more time to fact check and make it quality work. On the other hand, customer experience is more of like through AI, how do you make sure that customer experience is good, right? If like let's say you already place data in the bank, why do you need to rewrite it and rewrite it again every time you go to the bank? Like you can, I don't know, use AI to do that. I'm just making things up right now. But at the end of the day, also product and services, okay, through AI, how do you deliver better product or service or value? So an example of that is instead of making our customers or like our people take surveys that are like Likert and 1 to 5, how do you feel about this? Yes or no? We made an AI that would actually talk to them in their native language and would get their behaviors and then really talk like this normally in chat so that we would get and really understand them. And that's a better service experience, right? So I think those are the four things that people should remember when doing that. Because ethics and all that is very high level already. That I think it's a normal person looking at this would say, okay, so how do I start? So I think those four things is somewhere you can start.
Excellent, excellent, extremely valuable. And thank you for sharing your LinkedIn, the fourth wall, and your Instagram at Dae Lee. Is that correct?
Yes.
Perfect. Where we can find other resources and tools, maybe about this whole AI and how to localize it
Mhm,
and how to actually maybe take advantage of our culture
mhm.
to make us, just the better people, if you want to say. It's been a great time talking to you.
No worries.
Maybe we can talk a lot more about many, many, many things.
Sure.
And to our viewers, okay, other than the LinkedIn and the Instagram, maybe you have an event coming up that you'd like to invite our viewers to, or
Right. By the way, I do have a TED Talk already on YouTube. The title's kind of long. It's something like how being Korean before it was cool taught me about empowerment. But all the data that I've mentioned a while ago about the, women empowerment and the data of 32% and 70%, etc. I talk about it there, that how local data actually empowers and foreign data might discourage people. So yeah, if you're interested in those things, then please do check it out on YouTube. I think it's already there. Yes, those links.
absolutely looking forward to that, definitely. And of course, our viewers, as usual, if you enjoyed today's conversation, please do not forget to smash the like,
Hmm.
subscribe, and follow that you see at the bottom. And our next episode, episode 7, we'll be interviewing Rob Rancis, who will be talking about recovery to optimization, rethinking mental health initiatives at work, something that I'm sure is very dear to all of us. And as always, learning is a never ending journey with limitless vistas.